Oh my god, I've missed this. Hello guys, we are back with a mukbang. It's been such a long time. I'm being a little bit quiet today because Darcy's home again, sick, so I'm trying to film this while he naps. So I don't want it to be sounding too enticing for a 4-year-old. But I'm doing a little bit of a different mukbang today. I decided to make my own dish because I was craving a Karaage chicken style meal, but I actually found these seaweed paper, what would you even call them? Roasted seasoned Korean seaweed, that's all they're called, but they're like little sheets, essentially the same thing as a sushi roll sheet but smaller, and it's in the little snack aisle section, so it's not actually in the sushi aisle section. Anyway, I decided to do this randomly today. I'm in no makeup, I'm just in my everyday outfit. You're really getting the brunt of me today, but it's kind of on topic, it's kind of on theme for what I want to talk about today. I actually asked you guys over on Instagram for any questions for today's mukbang, and so many of you came through with questions around BPD and my mental health and all of the stuff that I was probably going to touch on in this video anyway, so it kind of just makes sense. So we're going to have a big chat today, and I'm going to add some Kewpie mayo, of course, sriracha mayo, a new seasoning that I've got from Big Seasoning. This is the wasabi seaweed. I tried it with this bowl the other day. So good. And then the little sheets. So we're gonna kind of do like mini sushi, and then also popcorn chicken because I couldn't be bothered making the chicken. Let's be honest. How cool do they look? I'm just gonna start with the 1 pack, but I know I'll eat 2. Now we're gonna add some of this seasoning onto the rice. It's kind of, it says wasabi, but it's not spicy. It's kind of like the dried peas. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, it's so delicious though, and it's like got sesame seeds in it. Just like to sprinkle it all over the rice. This is rice cooker rice, so it's like the best kind. And it is sushi rice. Now add on my chicken. Oh my god, that looks so good. And then for the goodie part, Kewpie mayo. This one's nearly run out, but don't worry. Don't worry guys, we got backup. How good does that look? And then we've got the sheets. So this is gonna be a very messy style mukbang, but that's okay. You guys know by now, if you've come to watch my mukbang, you're gonna see me eat with my mouth full. You're gonna see me get messy. You're gonna hear me with food in my mouth. That's just what it is, and I'm sure you guys are loving that if you're here. So the first question someone wants to know is why we moved back to Brisbane. They've been dying to find out. So the reason we moved back was, look, it was never a great time of our life to make the decision. We loved the rural lifestyle and we loved living down there. We loved being in that family, but ultimately there was 2 main reasons that we ended up moving back up here. The main one being that the owner of the property was moving back into the property at the end of our year lease, which we had specifically asked ahead of time if they were going to be coming back. They said no. And then the owner emailed being like, yeah, we've always had plans to move back. So then we started hunting for another house. And unfortunately in the area that it was being COVID and everything, all of the 4-bedroom houses were being returned to by the landlords a year later after the contract. So we weren't going to keep moving our kids from house to house to stay in an area that just wasn't suiting our needs. And the second part was the medical side of things. I actually found that I dropped off the system for my like fistula stuff and all that when I moved down there. So it was just a smarter choice to move back here. It wasn't an easy choice, one that we really tried to fight against making. And it was a really hard and sad decision to come to, but it was always an option if it never worked out down there. And unfortunately, it just happened to not work out really soon after we moved down. We found out that the owners were moving back like 4 weeks into our lease. It was really soon on, which kind of killed the buzz joy of it all. So yeah, it sucked, and we weren't in a position to buy. So we were left at the mercy of the rental market in a rural area, which was really tough. Like there was probably 1 or 2 properties that came up that entire time. And both of those were, the owners were coming back a year later. So it just wasn't suited for our family, unfortunately. But anyway, time to eat this yummy, yummy food. It's like melting in my hand as we speak. Oh my God, I've missed this. So yum. You honestly have to try it. And these like little sushi things are so cheap as well. Also, sorry if you can hear Darcy coughing in the background. I assumed he'd be asleep by now, but he is not. So there we go. Someone has asked how old I am. I am 21. Just kidding. I actually don't have a fear of like sharing my age. I totally get it if people do, but I don't. I'm 29 and I'm gonna be 30 this year, which is hella exciting. Next stage of my life. Yeah, I'm not too nervous. I say that now, but I'm also not there yet. So come back to me when it's November. I need a towel. One under the table. The next person asks how best to find a hobby / inspiration. I'm on mat leave and sometimes feel like I'm only a mum. Well, first of all, I totally relate to that feeling of like feeling like you're only a mum. However, I had absolutely no troubles finding hobbies. I had troubles keeping hobbies and finding the time to do the hobby. That was my issue. Never really the source of interest. I'm a hugely creative person. I always have been. I'm also a very explorative person and very sporadic. So I will leap into a new hobby given a chance. And I would totally think that I'm the kind of person that can do that thing, even though it takes like years for someone to skill up to do those things. So for me, it's more so struggling to find one hobby that I can perfect rather than 10 hobbies and know I can do it all. That's my struggle. If you are struggling to find a hobby, start with the basics. Sewing, knitting, crocheting, I don't know, magazines. I'm not really sure of any others other than like crafty ones, but have a look at all the, like read up hobby lists and see if any of them pique your interest and then try them. You're only going to know if you like it by doing it. And if that takes money, so be it. To me personally, investing money in yourself is never a waste of money. You're either learning a lesson from it or you're loving it. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no wrong answer. There's no wasted money. That's kind of how I saw it with my wardrobe as well. Like when I was purchasing new clothes for myself, when I felt like I couldn't leave the house, I was like, well, there's really no wasted money here. Like I'm just learning and growing. You know what I mean? Like there's no wrong answer. So I think just like put yourself out there. You might meet some friends in the certain hobbies. Like I just think there's no wrong hobby to choose, you know, and if it just doesn't click with you, then you just say, cool, tried it, done it, ticked it off the list, next one. Make a little like mini bucket list, that'd be cool. Oh my God, speaking of bucket lists, Elliot and I are going to be starting doing the alphabet date challenge. I don't know if you guys have seen this on TikTok, but I saw this pop up on my feed the other day and I've been so excited to try doing it. So each of us will take a turn in the alphabet. So like say I start with A and he goes to B, and both of you like plan that date, and the date has to be starting with that letter. So A may be, I don't know, art class, and B might be like bowling. And you have to organize it as like a surprise for the person. And you literally do that for all of your dates until you get to Z. How cool is that? It would take us many years. I said to Ella, I was like, we're not going to get this done very quickly, but at least it'll be fun and something to like try new things. So I'm really excited to try that this year. I thought this question was interesting. Am I done having kids? And if yes, how did I know? I'm done having kids, 100%. What was interesting though was when I first had Winnie, I didn't think I was done. And I constantly questioned the same thing, like, how am I going to know when I'm done? I feel like I'm never going to be done. I'm always clucky. I'm always like ready for another baby. And I don't know if it's just like motherhood that just wore me down, or, you know, my ADHD or whatever else is going on. But I feel like I'm at my capacity to give a fulfilling life to anyone else beyond who's in my life right now. And I think for me, like, I'm kind of in that phase where I'm now having to be quite selfish in a sense of like putting myself first, because how can I fill anyone else's cup if my cup's not full? So for me, that's been quite an eye-opener to not wanting more kids, because I don't feel like I'm giving myself the full needs. How else can I give another kid their full needs? Do you know what I mean? So I think that was when I realized that I was done, was when I realized I couldn't give any more children the time that they needed from me. Do you know what I mean? Everyone is different. Some people have like 6 kids and feel that they meet all of their needs, and that is great for them. But for me, I feel like, oh, hello. For me, I feel like 2 and I'm done, you know, like 2 is a good number for me. It also means, and well, Elliot always said he wanted 2, but he was happy to compromise on 3. But he always liked the number 2 because it meant that we couldn't, it was like even adult to kid ratio kind of thing. We would never be overwhelmed. But I mean, we're still overwhelmed and we only have 2. So yeah, but I just know we're done. It's just a feeling. I don't feel clocky anymore. When I see newborn babies, I think they're cute, but I don't feel like I need one. But that's been a gradual over the past like 2 years. If you'd asked me when I first had Winnie and in that first year, I would have been hands down saying we're having more. Like, wouldn't have changed my mind. Someone wants to know what started my journey on loving my body, or like my self-love journey. This started when I started this whole theme of my channel, really, which was 4 years ago, as old as Darcy is. Because I had Darcy, we were vlogging our life up until that point, very sporadically. And then I fell into like a deep depression where none of my clothes fit. I honestly felt like I couldn't leave my house. Like, it wasn't I don't want to. It was like a physical restraint that I wouldn't leave my house. I wasn't socializing. I wasn't seeing any friends. Like, all of it became insignificant. And I did a lot of soul searching around that time to figure out, like, why won't I leave this house? Like, I know I've just had a baby. I know I'm sore. I know I'm recovering from a C-section, but like, why won't I leave the house? And the reason was because I was so fearful of what people would perceive of me after having a baby. Like, my boobs were bigger, my tummy was bigger, my clothes didn't fit. We were also extremely tight with money back then. Like, we were living paycheck to paycheck because I was on maternity leave. And honestly, I felt so bad about myself. I just got to this point where I was just like such an antisocial person, and it wasn't me at all to be like that. And it was a huge red flag to me to like figure out what was going on. And I realized it was because I cared so much about my appearance, and I was sick of it. I was sick of feeling like I couldn't live my life because I wasn't what society deemed normal, you know? And it was all blown up in my head as well. Like, obviously, yes, there's a lot of like societal pressures on that in my mind as well. But I think a lot of it was working up the courage and the confidence to say, well, if anyone says anything, they can get screwed, kind of thing, you know? And that took a lot of inward work for me to realize that it was a deep rooted need to please, which stemmed from childhood, which stemmed from, you know, certain people in my life. And it took culling people out of my life and really looking inwards on who I wanted to be and the people I wanted to surround myself with. And I only wanted to be surrounded with confidence and happiness. And if that meant doing all of that hard work, I was going to do it. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. And I'm still, you know, 4 years on, battling things like going out in public today with no bra on while I'm wearing a skin tight top. Like, things are still hard for me, and will continue to be for probably a very long time. You know, things that you're raised with, like that, deep rooted beliefs, don't just disappear overnight. And you don't just wake up one day going, oh my God, I love myself. That's just not how it works. And anyone that says that you do reach that is lying to you. However, I will say that once I figured that out, life became a hell of a lot easier. I very infrequently now think about it. I don't really, you know, when I wake up every day, I don't think, oh, what outfit is going to be the most slimming or the most flattering. That's just not how I live my life anymore. However, 3, maybe even 2 years ago, that was how I lived my life. And that was after I'd started my body confidence journey. So you don't have to be perfect. No one is perfect. Your journey's not going to be perfect. There's going to be hurdles, but as long as you're committing to it and you're giving yourself the lenience to make the mistakes, like, you're only human at the end of the day. Nothing is going to be perfect. And I think once you realize that, it just opens up a whole new world. A whole new world. But it really does. I'm not really eating. And my foot's gone dead. I love this for us. Just tackle one thing at a time. And like I said, surround yourself with people that are going to support your journey, and people that maybe have in the past commented on your body or made rude remarks. Take step forwards to educate. If they're important to you and you want them to continue to be in your life, let them know what's hurtful. Let them know how that makes you feel. And if they don't listen and improve on their actions, you have a choice to either accept that for who they are or choose to move on. It's actually something that I've been learning through my BPD training is, or like therapy, I should say, is how to acknowledge when friendships are hurtful and when I'm being overly critical or like things like that. Like, for me, I'm very black and white. And I'm trying to find the grey, which is hard to do, especially when you've had a lot of trauma and abandonment in the past. Anyway, I hope that helps. I'm certainly, like I said, not perfect myself and on my own journey, but I hope that's given you some insight on where to start. Look inwards and find what's your key reasoning that's stopping you from loving your body, that's stopping you from starting your own journey. Oh, this one's a nice light-hearted one. Let's head into that. Where would you like to go on holidays next? Pardon me. There's 2 things really calling to me, one of which is Canada. I love Canada. I've been there, went skiing, loved it. Love the culture. It's the most similar vibe to Australians that I've ever found, in a sense that they're really friendly, very helpful if you need it. And I just really liked the country, the climate, everything like that. So I really want to go there, but I'm half tempted to do like a layover there on our way back from the UK. So for anyone that may be really new to my channel, might not know that I'm from the UK. I was born in London, and then I moved over here when I was 11, 12-ish. I think I was 11. And I went back once in 2010, and I have not been back since, and I'm really craving a visit home. Like, my grandparents are there, my uncles and aunts are there, my cousins are there. And for me, I just miss a white Christmas. Like, I know it sounds so cliche. I know that everyone says that when they've either had a white Christmas or they've been from the UK, but I really am craving it. So we're aiming to go this year if we can save. And that's a big if, because the kids' daycare fees are astronomical now that they're in full time. But that is the plan. We would love to go back to the UK for an English Christmas. However, if we don't go this year, we'll probably go next year. But yeah, hoping COVID as well allows that to happen. My friends and family in the UK haven't met my kids either, so that would be really cool. Oh, one item of clothing I could never live without. Oh, that's so hard. Well, I could definitely live without a bra or underwear. Quite often don't wear those. What's one item? Probably a smock dress. Just a simple throw it on, classic salty cross dress. Like, that's what I go to every single day that I'm in mum life mode. It's just comfortable, cozy, light, easy breezy, pretty. Yeah, that's probably the one I'd go. A couple of people are asking about podcasts. The podcast that Elle and I did together will not probably come back, just because it is a time-consuming thing to involve Elle. He works full-time. We've obviously got kids together, so it is a commitment for both of us to do that. However, maybe one day, I'm not going to like put any claims on this because I have definitely not scheduled the time in for this yet. But maybe one day I might start another podcast with someone else or by myself, talking about more along what my niche is. I don't really know. I've thought about it, but then I go back and forth and I'm like, I really just can't commit to another platform right now. Like, I'm so flat off my feet. So I've had a few people ask questions about my BPD and how the treatment is going. Oh, pardon me. This food makes me very burpy. Okay, this is a big topic and I don't really know how to like really enter into it, but I know that I want to. I just don't think there's a lot of information like on this level out there. I've seen stuff on TikTok, like if you're on BPD TikTok, you'll see stuff. But like in general conversation, when I talk to people, they're like, what's BPD? Or like, they think it's bipolar. Even my GP today was like, oh, so it's bipolar. I was like, no, BPD, borderline personality. She's like, oh yes, of course. So it's like even down to that level that people don't really recognize it. From what I know, BPD is treatable. It's something that you don't take medication for, and you're not necessarily born with it. That could be incorrect. There may be traits or like, in a sense, a more genetic lenience to have it down the track, but it's mostly built off trauma and a fear of abandonment. That's the main key pillars of BPD as far as my understanding goes. Like I said, there's not a lot of information around it. Like when I spoke to my psychologist or when I got diagnosed, it's kind of, they more focus on treating it rather than talking about it, if that makes sense. Like, it's not really like we have this in-depth session of learning what BPD is. I just did research online about it when it got brought up in conversation. So feel free to have a bit of a Google, and I truly do recommend looking up these kind of things because you just don't know when you can be of help to someone that's close in your life that may be struggling with it, and maybe even undiagnosed with it as well. Like, it's a very common, I want to say disorder. I think it's a disorder. I'm just trying to use medical terms here so that no one comes up to me. So I got diagnosed by my psychologist, and she runs a DBT therapy group, which is essentially a dialectical training therapy session that's done with a group of people. We all navigate modules together, so we'll get books of information about certain categories, whether that be, like I said, friendships, or learning how to process emotions. I just tried looking up the term and I can't quite find it, but I think it's like frontal lobe, or like whatever the front part of your brain is when you are in emotion mind, or when you have BPD or any of the like ADHD, ADD disorders. Your frontal part of your brain will disconnect, and you actually won't be able to connect logic with your emotions. It's actually something that they've seen on brain scans that happens to people, and it's apparently the only difference between us and monkeys is that they can't do that. We can do that. And so when someone is struggling with their emotions and acting off emotion, it's called emotion mind. When you're just purely acting off emotions, which quite often people with BPD will do, they'll get heightened a lot quicker, which is myself. Things will trigger me easier. I'm very emotional, and I'll make a lot of impulse decisions and really find it hard to match with a logical mind. And so you kind of have the polar opposites. You've got emotion mind and then logical mind, I think it's called. And then what you want to be getting to is a term called wise mind, which means that you're using a mixture of both. And that's what my DBT therapy is all about, is trying to make decisions in my wise mind, teaching me skills, how to regulate my emotions and just make not smarter decisions, but decisions that are based off more logic than just emotion. It's really hard to explain, especially when I'm not trained in it, but you kind of get the gist of that. Don't quote me. This is just based off my understanding that I've done on research. I am not a doctor. I am not a specialist. If you have any concerns or anything resonates with you, please do your own research and please do seek out your own doctor. So I was getting my BPD sessions underway, and suddenly TikTok started feeding me ADHD content. And then I was like, I don't have ADHD. You know, I was thinking of the typical hyperactive boy that you have in your mind. Well, I had in my mind of what ADHD looked like. And then I had a lot of women creators who were like saying they'd come out later in life finding out that they had ADHD and getting diagnosed late in life, and what that looked like for them. And I was like, oh my God, this is literally me. You know, it's hard to really put into words how much the struggle has been there for myself when I feel that I put on a pretty great mask to even people in my life. The only people that really can't see beyond the mask is the people that live with me. You kind of learn to fit into the crowd. And I always felt like I was never on top of things. Like, I've always really struggled with behaviors that I have. I don't really know how to really word this in a good way, but the thing that really drove home to me that there was a major problem was post kids. Like, my hormones were crazy. I don't know if you guys remember, but I was like diagnosed with postpartum depression and a whole array of other things that were going on at that time. And now that I look back on it, I actually think it was ADHD that was playing up, and the hormones, like when you're on your cycles every month as a woman with your period, whenever your hormones are out of play, your symptoms are so much more significant and have a bigger impact on your life. So for me, it took a while to realize and connect the dots and go, actually, I may not have BPD, or I may have BPD and ADHD. So the last year I've been doing a lot of research, trying to look back on my old school records, and I've also been pairing in my mind what I recall teachers saying to me. And because with ADHD, and a diagnosis for ADHD is that you have to be able to show that it's been something that's been going on throughout your entire life, not just obviously recently. The thing that was like the major trigger to start looking into this for me was my memory. It got to the point where I was actually Googling early onset dementia because I couldn't remember simple little things down to what I'd eaten for breakfast that day. And I know that sounds really trivial and so many people feel that way, but it was to the point where I couldn't retain information. And that was super important as a parent, not being able to get my kids to appointments, not remembering to be at certain places at certain times, both medically and for work and things like that. Like, how can I function even in a simple thing like a job? You know, like going to a 9-to-5 job was impossible. I couldn't focus. I couldn't remember tasks. I was making careless mistakes. And I just thought that that was normal / tiredness from having kids. And I don't really know when it kind of like hit me that, hey, this isn't normal. But I remember Googling early onset dementia and thinking that's not normal. That's not normal to be at the level where you have fears that you have dementia. Like, that was, I don't know why that for me was my red flag, my biggest one. But there was so many elements in my life that were just like, holy hell, and like eating disorders, like binge eating and stuff like that, which I've struggled with all of my adult life. And it's just really interesting because you're constantly seeking dopamine hits when you have ADHD or ADD. And for me, I've always done that through lots of hobbies and eating and buying and impulsive things like holidays, impulsive things like moving down states, like things like that are seeking dopamine hits because my body is not giving me enough. Do you know what I mean? So at this stage, I have not been diagnosed with ADHD. I am currently on the wait list for my psychiatrist. I'm waiting to hear back from him when he can put me in for an appointment, but I got my referral letter from my psychologist and my GP, who both believe that I do have that based on what we've had discussions with. So we are going to proceed to the psychiatrist, and hopefully, I'm just praying. I'm not praying that I have ADHD. I'm praying that there is an answer to what is going on for me, whether that be ADHD or some other diagnosis. I'm obviously not a specialist, and I'm certainly not going in naive thinking it's the only thing it could possibly be. I'm not trained in this at all, but it's just based off the information that A, I've spoken to my psychologist about, but B, done a lot of research into, because it has been so debilitating. Okay, even like paring this back, because this is so hard to explain, but like simple tasks that I know are going to happen, I can't make myself do them. This sounds so ridiculous, but simple things like brushing my teeth and having a shower, cooking a meal, like all of these basic necessity things that you think probably nothing of in your day other than, oh, this is going to be annoying, but I'll just get it done. For me, I can't do those things easily. It takes me 2 to 3 hours to convince myself to go to bed at night, not because of any other reason other than I don't want to brush my teeth. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And I really don't think there's enough discussion around it. I've been super private about this as well because, like I've said in the past, I haven't ever wanted to speak out of turn or, impact the ADHD community or lessen their experience if I don't have that. But I also think that this is a very valid part of someone's experience with ADHD. And if I don't have ADHD, then it's a valid part of my experience to whatever I end up being diagnosed with. And I need to stop invalidating my journey to the point. I keep thinking, well, I can talk about it when I've been diagnosed, but that's so not true. And a diagnosis, as I've been made aware by many of my friends who have an ADHD diagnosis, is a privilege. It is a privilege to be diagnosed. It's a privilege to be able to afford to go to the GP, let alone the psychiatrist, to get those diagnosis. It's also a privilege to be on that medication and afford that medication. So I'm not there yet, but I am completely aware of the privilege that comes with that. Even if opening up helps one other person realize that it's okay to not know what you're going through right now, but to like seek the help that you need. Because for me, I knew I needed help. I just didn't know how to ask or what to ask. And I'm really close to tears. This whole time I've been like on the edge of tears, and I'm trying to not be emotional. But here's another thing, like with this disorder, is we are highly emotional people. We do feel things a lot deeper than other people. What frustrates me too is like, we live in a world that is not built for us. It is not built for people who don't function in the normal way. And I saw this TikTok yesterday where it was talking about, my morning routine doesn't look like the typical morning routine. It's not like meditate, journal, write out your daily plan and do this. It's literally making a coffee and making a coffee and sitting down in front of the TV and watching a show before you work. And that's literally what I have to do every day. I have to watch the TV before I work up until the very minute I work. Because I don't dread my work. I love my work, but I dread the process of my work, if that makes sense. I dread anything that I have to put energy into. And it's purely because my body is so exhausted and my mind is so exhausted that it has to keep all of the energy that it has for the things that it has to do. I can't explain it, but it's almost like I'm chained to the couch. I cannot leave the couch until I've worked myself up to the point where I feel that I can do that task. Like the activity of brushing my teeth is 2 minutes, but it takes me like 2 to 3 hours to tell myself it's okay, you can go do that thing. Let's go do that thing. Yeah, it's about time that I start just like showing up authentically myself. And if that means not sticking to a typical routine that society thinks is normal, then that's what I do, and that's okay. But yeah, I hope that's given you a little bit more insight to ADHD if you're not familiar with it. And if you are familiar with it and you think that you're on the same journey, like just know that your feelings are totally valid, and it's like seek the help that you require. The worst thing that they can say is like, no, you don't have that, but let's explore X, or no, that's completely normal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just trust yourself, trust your instincts, because I put it off for ages being like, no, you don't have this thing. You're just going to be like, because it's very trendy right now. And I think a lot of people during COVID had a lot of time to sit with their thoughts and feelings and things. And a lot of people are now discovering they have got ADHD, because the typical ADHD image used to be a boy that was like chaotic and running around, and that's just not how it displays in women. In women, it can be really talkative people, really impulsive people, fidgety. It could be highly emotional. A lot of different symptoms that display in women to men, and that's when I realized, oh my God, okay, this actually might be what I've been living with and why I'm struggling every day. And there's a very lengthy chat about ADHD, but if you want to know more, I can definitely go into more depth. But for those of you that probably are like, okay, I don't really care, let's hurry up and move along. Let's move on to some more questions. Sewing beginner tips. I'm amazed at how much you've achieved already. Do you know what's so funny is that for my whole entire life, well, not my whole entire life, but a lot of my life, both Elliot and people when I was younger used to be like, I don't know how you're always good at everything that you do. And I've since come to learn that that's a trait of someone with ADHD, is that you set your mind to something, you do it, and then you drop it. You lose interest in it, or you hyperfixate on it. For me personally, I work at something until I figure it out, and then I'm like, oh, don't like that anymore, or in some cases I'll realize I do like that and I'll hyperfixate on it for ages. And sewing is one of those things that I'm currently, it's my thing that I'm hyperfixating on. I really love it. I'm hoping that it sticks around because I do really like it. And YouTube is another one of those things where I started it off as a hobby. I told myself I could do this thing, and so I proved to myself I could do this thing, and it's actually been the only thing in my life that's been consistent for more than 2 or 3 years. Like, I've been doing YouTube now for 6 years, and that's honestly the longest thing that I think I've ever held down, which is huge for me. I've never done that. So sewing beginner tips for me are gonna look different to what other people would suggest. For me personally, I've found pattern making a huge barrier. Like following a pattern, I still haven't followed one to this day. I've semi-followed some, and I mostly watch YouTube tutorials. I find that watching people helps me a lot more than reading. I've never been a big reader. I just can't retain it. Sometimes like I'll read, but I can't take the information in as I read because I've got so many other thoughts going on. So for me, my beginning sewer tips has been trust my instinct, start off with copying clothes that are in my wardrobe, make my own patterns, not proper patterns, but just like tracing, and winging it. Yes, it means that I've made lots of mistakes along the way. Yes, it means I'm not ending up with super professional results. But for me, that's been the way to get my motivation going, because the more hurdles and barriers that I have in my way, such as following many, many, many steps in a sewing pattern and cutting it out and all the rest of it, those are all hurdles to me that drain me instantly. And I go, I'll do it another day. Don't want to do that. It's going to take me forever. Even though both are going to take me just as long. Both are going to take me just as much energy. For some reason in my brain, when it's spontaneous and it's self-drafted, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like it's taken me forever, because I'm learning as I'm going instead of like following something. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question. I'm actually really full. I'm surprised I'm really full because I really didn't eat as much as I would normally eat in a mukbang, so I'm sorry if that's disappointed anybody, but I've also chatted your ears off, so where do I get my fashion inspiration from? Camera died. And my foot's gone numb. Fashion inspiration is a really great question because for me, for the longest time, I've obviously used Pinterest, but a lot of the time Pinterest has always been like straight size, skinnier people than myself. So it has been quite hard to get inspiration from Pinterest. And to be honest with you, when it comes to plus sizes and like plus size fashion, I was only limited to what was out there, like what stores were providing clothes that fit my body. And that was the true hard fact of it, especially back when I first started this. Sorry, my leg's bent. Oh. When I first started like 4 or 5 years ago, I think I just got a hair on my lunch. There was such limited brands that I could review and look at, and so often my style would be floral big dresses and like play suits and things like that. And while I love them, and I absolutely think there is a time and a place for them, I'm now only this year starting to fall into what I feel is my true authentic style, which is skin tight clothes, basic clothes like this. Like really edgy, how would I put this? I feel like I'm a good blend of people styles. Some days I'm super girly. I want a pretty and pink dress, dressed to the nines, makeup fully done, and the next day I'll want a full androgynistic, I don't even know if that's a word, I think it is, look, and I'll want it super grungy, street style. I really think I just have a flair for all styles. I don't think I would categorize myself, and I don't know if that's just a lack of, I don't know if that's a bad thing, like a lack of knowledge of fashion, or if I'm just genuinely someone who loves all kinds of fashion. Because in this phase of my life, I feel like I'm just someone who likes and can appreciate a whole variety of styles. So that does make it hard for my wardrobe because I have so many different kinds of styles. But I also think that that's fun and a great way to share with a whole bunch of people lots of different styles in the plus size fashion. But then again, this year too has also just been a huge game changer for plus size people. So many more brands have expanded into plus sizes, which does mean that I can now shop at Princess Polly and wear these kind of tops, which may seem super basic and super like, oh my God, it's just a knit singlet. Yes, like how freaking annoying that it's taken years to get basics like this to plus size people. Like that to me is so saddening. But I think that's why this year I'm finally starting to step out of my comfort zone and I'm wearing a lot more unflattering pieces, because I don't really care anymore about what makes me look the best or what makes me skinnier or makes my tummy go away. I'm more so getting dressed every day with the intention of what's going to make me happiest and what's going to like let me live my best life in that day. But I feel like style is one of those things that you ever grow, ever change. Some people are super happy with a capsule wardrobe and a super minimalistic wardrobe, and I honestly dream of that. But it's just not me. And I honestly think that my fashion reflects my personality. Very chaotic. Very all over the shop. I can never make up my mind. One day I love one thing, the next day I love the other, and quite honestly, my fashion sense is the same. Like you just have to go to my Instagram feed to see what I'm talking about. Like one day I'll be wearing a floral, flowy maxi dress, and the next minute I'll be wearing grunge outfit. And I think that's okay and valid too. Like I don't think you need to niche down in every element of your life. I don't think everybody is going to have a super uniform style that they have. Some people love that and they love one thing and they love one style, and that's great for them. But for me, that's just never been me, and it probably will never be me. Come back to me if I end up being on medication, because your girl might be a whole new human. But for right now, that's where I'm at, and I'm also okay with that. Like I'm learning to love those little things and quirks about myself. And years ago, I probably would have tried everything in the book to not be that and be the textbook person. You know what I mean? Like the textbook dress how you think a plus size person should dress. That would have been me then. But now I'm kind of like, well, I don't really care about what people think of me. And I don't really care if my tummy looks too big in that outfit. I'm going to wear it because I love how it looks. So yeah, that's kind of the growth I think that I've come along, and I'm super proud of myself for that, because I would never have said that years ago. But it's taken a lot of work to get here too. So, you know. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. I'm sorry it was a really chatty one and not a lot of eating. Hopefully some of you would have loved that. But anyway, if you have any suggestions for the next mukbang, let me know down in the comments. Do you even like seeing these anymore? It's been such a long time since I've done this. And also make sure to come over to follow me on Instagram. I put my question boxes up there next time, so if you want to input any questions, you can add those to my stories. And yeah, don't forget to follow me here on this channel too, and I will see you guys very soon for more updates. Bye.